Hi there, and welcome to Pathway USA's webinar, How Can I Move to the United States? Sounds like a fairly simple question, just getting a visa and here you are. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not just a question of getting a visa into the United States, and I think everybody knows that the immigration system here is somewhat dysfunctional and extremely complicated. But probably the most important question is, what are you going to do when you get to the United States? That's probably the biggest mistake that we made. We focused entirely on getting the visa, and we didn't spend a second thinking about what we were going to do once we got here. And that's where the aggravation comes in. Just a little bit of background to Diane and myself. I'm from Hermanus originally. Diane is from Durban. We immigrated to the United States in 2001 with two small children. I'm a contractor with the Department of Defense. Diane is a PR, marketing, and social media guru. We founded Pathway back in 2006, excuse me, primarily because of our personal immigration nightmare experience. It took us just short of 20 years from arrival to getting citizenship, and we identified a real need to educate and guide people in this rather complicated process. We're independent. We have a totally unbiased approach towards immigration, and we became citizens in 2020. Now, I think probably the most important question that you should be asking yourself is America right for you and your family? It's a very popular holiday destination, but yeah, we come to the United States and we're on holiday. We've never really thought about what it would be like actually living in this country. So, one of the things that a lot of our clients do is they let us plan an LSD for them. Now, that's not what you think it is. It's a look, see, and decide trip, where you come here more as a prospective person living here than as a tourist. So it's an immersive visit to this country. You stay in an American home, so you can feel like what it's like living in these homes. You visit schools, colleges, and universities. We get you into networking sessions so you can meet other Americans in your industry and in allied industries. You can meet with others who've made this move from various parts of the world. You can talk to a CPA, that's a certified public accountant, about tax matters. You can meet with a realtor and a mortgage broker about housing options. You can visit a selection of American homes, so you can see what sort of home you get for your dollar or the currency that you'll be bringing here. You learn how to shop and save, and that's a critical one. As we say, only tourists and idiots pay retail. For the rest of us, there are some incredible bargains can be had if you know what you're doing and you experienced living here rather than just visiting here. And that's the job of Pathway USA. We educate you about your options and we help you decide what you're going to do down the road ahead. Now, probably the biggest question is one of trust. Why should you trust Pathway USA? Well, first of all, we've done this. So we speak from personal experience. We made dozens and dozens and dozens of mistakes. We trusted the wrong people. And because of that, through the School of Hard Knocks, we've become specialists in doing this the right way. And that experience that we picked up is for your benefit. If you're still in doubt, go and Google the reviews. We have no control over what people put on the reviews. So that would be a very good way of determining whether you're going to start the trust process. Go and see what some of our reviews are on Google. If you want any more information about it, read our book. Our journey was traumatic and the extreme, and we wrote a book called Scars and Stripes, A Journey Through the U.S. Immigration System. There's a QR code if you want to take a quick photograph of that. The website is also www.scarsandstripesbook.com. It's an interesting book. Some of it is the legal side of immigration. Some of it is the personal side, and some of it is good. Some of it is bad. Some of it make you sort of turn around in disbelief and say, well, this is not possible. This could not have happened. So there's a book. It might be worthwhile reading that. It gives you, we wrote it for two reasons. One is anybody thinking about immigrating to a country like the United States, you need to have your eyes open. It's probably one of the more traumatic things that you'll do in your life. The rewards are phenomenal. We don't regret a single minute of it. Once we came out at the end and we became citizens and we got ourselves established, it was fantastic. But you need to have your eyes open. So we wrote it for prospective immigrants. We also wrote it for the American market because the average American doesn't have the foggiest idea of what their own immigration system is all about. So Scars and Stripes at scarsandstripesbook.com. Now, the questions, how can I move to the United States and where do I start? Well, remember, moving to the USA is not just about getting a visa. The visa just gets you into the United States. It does not prepare you for a life in the USA. And so the questions are, what visa do you qualify for and what visa is best for the needs of your family? And this is our job. Our job is to educate you about your options and to help you decide. Then what happens once you get to the United States? This is where we went wrong. Where are you going to live? Are you going to rent or buy a home? And what are the pros and cons of each of them? There are advantages and disadvantages. You need to understand those in order to make a decision. Buying and financing a car. You can't just go down to a dealership, buy a car and get into it. You need a driver's license. You've got to have insurance before you can even drive that car off the lot. And the insurance is an important factor because insurance is high for new drivers. And yeah, you might have been driving in your country for years and years and years, but as far as the United States is concerned, you're a 16-year-old and you're going to get penalized in terms of insurance. So depending on the car you buy, depending on the age and the model and the color, this can have a huge impact on your insurance. Getting a driver's license is also a critical one that we didn't know anything about or how to go about doing it. Starting a business or finding a job, getting a credit score and starting to build some credit finance or getting credit finance. Education. What are you going to do about health insurance and getting a cell phone? Shopping that won't break the bank. How to avoid getting ripped off and how are you going to sort of fit into this new society, meeting people and making new friends. All of these are things that we didn't even think about when we started this move, and we had to learn through the school of hard knocks. Now, why should you start with Pathway USA once you decide that the USA is your destination of choice? Well, there are two essentials for a successful immigration. One is the visa to enter the USA to live and work. And our job is to educate you about your visa options so that you can properly brief an attorney. It's the easy part. Now, full disclosure, we are not immigration attorneys. We don't provide immigration advice. We don't provide legal services. We are educationists. So we have a far broader field that we can explore. So we don't have to ask you for your instructions. We'll find out about you and your family, your career, your qualifications, and we'll educate you about all of the visas and work with you to choosing the best visa that suits your needs. Then we'll put you in touch with an attorney who specializes in that particular visa, and you can now go and make an informed decision about what visa you want, and you can have an educated discussion with your attorney. In our case, we didn't know anything about the visas. We didn't know good attorneys and bad attorneys. We went to the first attorney that we heard about, and he said, oh, go for this visa. Well, it was the worst advice we possibly could have had, and that put us on a roller coaster, which cost us an absolute fortune. Our mistake was we didn't know about the visas and we didn't know the qualifying requirements. We didn't know the pros and cons before we went to go and see an attorney. And then the second question, the second important factor is to prepare you for your arrival and your future in the United States. This is the difficult part because there are so many variables, and this is our area of expertise. The sooner we can start talking to you, the better. Okay, don't leave it for the last minute. Now, question is, what visa do you qualify for? Well, each year the United States awards between 140 and 160,000 employment-based green cards, and about 1 million employment-based guest worker visas, and something like 732,000 family reunification green cards. So you've got almost 2 million choices there. What are you going to do about that? You can start spending some time on Google, and you can go and understand all of them, or contact us because Pathway USA connects you to the visa that you qualify for and that best suits your needs. Now, here's just a selection of some of the visa options. On your non-employment visas, you've got your B1, B2, which you're all familiar with, and the ESTA. Then in your family-sponsored visas, you've got a whole range of those, ranging from the IR1 to the F4. Then you've got two investment-based visas, the EB5 and the E2, a whole list of employment-based visas. Now, each of these has very, very clearly defined qualifying requirements. This is not a sort of a cookie-cutter exercise where you can mix and match. Either you meet those qualifying requirements or you don't, and you need to understand whether you meet those requirements or whether you don't. And our job is to connect you to the visa that you qualify for and that best suits your needs. But there is a massive selection of visa options. Okay, then you can do immigration by investment. It's the Rolls Royce of visas. Basically, you can buy a green card into the United States. You put down a fairly sizable investment. It's currently about 800,000 US dollars, and that will give you a green card for yourself, your spouse, and your children who are under 21. It's by far the best way of doing it, but it's a fairly high bar because of that investment requirement of about $800,000, and you've got probably another $100,000 in legal fees, management fees, and filing fees that you're going to be looking at. So roughly you're talking just short of $1 million, but you can buy your way in with a green card for that. However, just because you've invested in an EB5, it doesn't give you any advantages. You're still treated as a tourist until you have a credit score. You will still be totally unprepared for living and working in the United States. And having no credit score, but loads of cash in the bank, just means you're going to pay more for everything and you're going to get ripped off. In America, we just don't pay cash for anything because it doesn't give you any advantages. You're not going to get any discounts by paying for cash. You need to run credit because credit builds a credit score, and credit score is vitally important. Next slide. People, you've got to be responsible. Remember, the onus is on you to understand the visa path that you're embarking on. You cannot afford not to be educated because remember, this is your money and your future. This was our mistake. We didn't take responsibility. We passed the buck to the attorney and we said, we paid your money, now go ahead and get us our visa. We didn't understand the qualifying requirements. We were not in a position, and we didn't even insist upon checking every single thing that the attorney was filing with the United States government. We just sort of left it up to the attorney thinking, okay, well, we've paid the money, everything is going to be fine. And that was our mistake. We were in the wrong visa, and of course, we didn't pick up that factor. Attorneys do make mistakes. Remember, they're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of clients. It is so easy for an attorney to make a mistake. They say, sorry, you pay the penalty, because if you get a denial because the attorney made a mistake, that's your responsibility, not his responsibility. And the USCIS is not going to accept the fact that your attorney made the mistake. You are the one who's responsible for everything that's being filed. So you've got to get educated about your visas. You've got to get educated about every aspect of moving to the US, because ultimately you carry the can. Because we sort of abrogated our responsibility and we left it to an attorney, we ultimately, after 12 years in this country, lost pretty much everything, had to close our businesses down, put our house in storage, find tenants for the house, and we had to self-deport, move to another country and go and start the process all over again. Our immigration ended up costing us something in the order of about $450,000, which most of that was attorney's fees and legal fees. Why? Because we didn't take responsibility for what was happening on our behalf. Go and read some Google reviews. Here's one. Bruce and Diane are fantastic. Knowledge and integrity is phenomenal. Wholeheartedly recommend these two very professional people. Here's another one. Absolutely brilliant service and advice from Bruce. Having a Zoom meeting about one of the biggest changes you're about to embark on and to be guided on your options is incredible. Google is good independent. Talk to other people who've made this move, but your Google reviews, we can't control them. So if somebody really is pissed off with us, they're going to put it up on a Google review. So go and get guided by these reviews and do your due diligence. Our purpose is to educate and advise you. Not all immigration providers are trustworthy. Some of them are dishonest. Along our journey, we had one immigration lawyer disbarred. We had another so-called immigration lawyer sent to jail for a year. So once again, your due diligence does not just apply to working with us, but it also applies to the attorneys. Now, what we've done over the years is we've met many attorneys, we've spoken with them, we've tested the knowledge that they have. I actually have a law degree, so I'm quite familiar with the US immigration law. And in the selection of attorneys, I would ask attorneys legal questions and see how they handle those questions. And gradually what we've done is we've narrowed down the attorneys that we like working with because they're knowledgeable, they are professional, their fees are very competitive and very reasonable. In fact, the attorneys love the work that we do because we send them educated clients who can have informed discussions. Those attorneys that we do not support, they dislike what we're doing because we don't send anybody to them, and we sort of discourage you from using some of the attorneys. Remember, our job is to provide a tailor-made solution that works for you, not just in getting the visa, but in also making a success of this move to the United States. And primarily, we've got to demystify the American immigration system. There are so many rumors about it. Yes, it is dysfunctional. It hasn't been updated in probably 30 years. So there is a lot of confusion in the US immigration system. We're familiar with that, and our job is to put a spotlight on all of the weaknesses and to guide you through that process. Your immigration lawyer is going to ask you for your visa instructions. Now, he's going to assume that you even know what instructions to give him, because you probably don't. He's not there to educate you about your visa options. He's not going to tell you about the disadvantages of the visa you might have chosen. He does not promise success. He gets your money, win or lose. And he does not prepare you for the minute you arrive in the United States. Once you got your visa, your attorney wants nothing further to do with you. He's working on somebody else's case. Now you sink or swim when you get to the US, and that's where we come into play. Our job is to educate you about your visa, to explain those qualifying requirements, explain the pros and cons of each visa, to empower you to make informed decisions about your future, and we teach you how to play the American game, which is unlike anywhere else in the world. We thought, oh, it's an English-speaking country, we'll fit in quite easily. Wrong. It is totally. They don't even speak the same language as we do. And we had some incredibly embarrassing moments when we use terminology that we are quite familiar with in our home country. Well, we used it in the United States, and it has a totally different name. I only found that out about 6 months after we'd been here. Couldn't figure out why my business was suffering. And then I found out that I was using a piece of terminology which means one thing in Britain and South Africa. It means exactly the opposite in the United States. People were looking at me as if I was totally nuts because I couldn't speak the American language and I didn't understand how that American game works. We're impartial and completely honest. We get taken to task on this every now and again. I'm not there to blow smoke up you and give you a wonderful story about how fantastic it is and how easy it is and how everything is going to fall into place and you're going to change your wonderful lifestyle in your home country into another wonderful lifestyle in the United States. It's tough. It's probably one of the most tough things that you're going to do. So I'm impartial. I'm completely honest. If I think you got a lousy case, I'm going to tell you you got a lousy case. I've never been wrong. You're welcome to go and get a second opinion. I've never yet had an attorney reverse an opinion that I've come up with. We're going to show you how to plan your move and what you can do before you get here to make your life so much easier. Here's a Google review of somebody that I was dealing with recently. Christy said, Bruce was extremely kind, helpful, and knowledgeable. He was brutally honest and yet still compassionate. I would recommend setting up a meeting with PathwayUSA before taking any steps to travel to the USA. Christy, thank you so much. I know it was a really hard Zoom meeting that we had. And I'm so appreciative that you understand that honesty was all that I could give you. Yes, I think we have figured out a way for you to get to the United States, but yes, you were quite shocked at some of the news that I had to give you. But it was a very interesting Zoom meeting that we had. Now, our methodology. First of all, we want to assess your personal situation and your objectives. Only once I understand that can we start planning a successful life for you in the United States, to educate you about what you need to know and to give you a pathway to get to your goal. If we don't have a plan, and the plan is not just about how you get into the United States. One of my questions that I will ask you is, are you wanting to come to the US temporarily to make some money and then go home? Or is this ultimately where you would like to keep the options open of making this your forever home? I need to know an answer to that. Now, you can't tell an attorney that. Because that would lock you out of certain visas. If your intention is to stay here permanently, some visas your attorney may not file for you. But I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving you legal advice, but I will ask you what your long-term goals are, and then the planning that I will do for you is going to be geared not only towards getting you into the United States, but also how to keep you here permanently and make you happy and successful. So your first step, the first game plan step, talk to us via WhatsApp or Zoom. Let's get introduced. I need to know about you and your family. You need to learn about who we are and what we do. You've got to do your due diligence. Check out our social media, our website testimonials, and our Google reviews. You must decide whether you are willing to trust us or not. Big decision. You got to trust us. Otherwise, we have nothing further to talk about. Then, game plan step 2. We've got an online client questionnaire. I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. If you email us, we'll send you a link to that questionnaire. But that's one of the things that I need filled in for yourself and your spouse. If you are not yet married, remember there are no visas for unmarried couples. But if you are possibly going to be getting married, when you do that questionnaire, you give us the information of both yourself and your significant other. Because remember, in a family unit, I only need to find a visa for one of you. So I always look at who's got the best chance of getting a visa, because the spouse automatically gets derivative status, and children under the age of 21 automatically get derivative status. So if you're married, fill in that questionnaire, but give me the information on both spouses, and then I will decide which of you has the greatest chance of success in getting the visa that will meet your needs. That questionnaire is going to help us focus on educating you about the visas. Remember, there are so many of them. That's going to help me narrow them down to the ones that I think you have the best chance of success. It's also what benefits and challenges lie ahead. There are huge advantages to moving to the United States, but yeah, there are a lot of challenges. We need to talk about all of those. One of them is just, how are you going to extricate yourself from family and friends in your home country? When do you tell them about this? How do you go about telling them about it? And so forth. And we're going to put together a plan for you to work on before you get to the United States. As I said, the earlier you start this, the better. Come on, let's have another slide. Okay, once we've reviewed your client questionnaire, we'll call you to arrange a date and a time. Now, we do a 1 hour or a 2 hour Zoom consult. We'll explain the fees and payment options for that consult. And if you decide you want to go ahead and confirm that consult appointment, just pay the fee. It's the least expensive part of emigrating to the United States. And according to our clients, it's the most valuable. Whether you want to accept it or not, US immigration is not cheap for 2 reasons. One is everything is paid in dollars, and it's expensive in dollar terms. It becomes even more expensive when you start looking at the currency exchanges between your country and the US dollar. So, the investment of a few $100s to talk to us first and find out what your chances are, The pros and cons of what you're trying to do, it's a good investment. It saves you from spending tens of thousands of dollars down the road on some form of mistake where you're actually never going to get into this country. Our clients always maintain that the money that they spend with us is worth every cent, and it's cheap at the price. So that's something for you to consider. Then game plan number 4, the consult is going to provide you with a detailed plan of action for the road ahead. Briefing an immigration lawyer with informed instructions. As I said, you can use your own attorney if you already know one. If not, we will refer you to one of the attorneys. Now, on the point of this, we get no kickbacks from attorneys. They are, in fact, not allowed to pay commissions. You paying us for the consult. And including in that consult is a referral to an attorney. There's no additional fee that we charge for referring you to an attorney. We don't get kickbacks from the attorneys. We put you with an attorney who we believe is going to give you the greatest chance of success at getting that visa. As I say, we've worked with these attorneys. We like to keep in touch with you. You tell us what your relationship with that attorney is like, how you found him, whether you found them professional, the pros and cons of working with one of the attorneys that we refer you to. If there's a problem, you tell us. We take it up with the attorney. If it gets resolved, great. If not, well, we reconsider whether we're going to refer future clients to those attorneys. So the reason we can refer them is because we've had excellent feedback from clients who have worked with those attorneys. We're going to plan your local exit strategy. What are you going to do about getting out of your country? One is financial. The other one is family. What do you bring? What do you leave behind? What are you going to ship? What are you not going to ship? What documentation do you need? All of that planning that you've got to do before you actually leave your country, that's part of our planning with your exit strategy. We can open a US bank account while you're still overseas. So if you're living in a country which has got huge currency fluctuations, you might want to consider getting a US bank account now. And every time there's a favorable exchange rate between your currency and the US dollar, you can move some money offshore. I know in some countries they have limitations as to how much money you can move offshore in any particular year. So the sooner you start this process of building up your US war chest and your US bank account, the better. And as I say, we can do this. You don't even have to come into the United States. You don't have to go into a bank. We can do this for you remotely. We also very often buy US properties for our clients overseas. We can get you a US mortgage while you're still living overseas, and we can leverage that with a US tenant. So basically how that works is if you're toying with the idea of moving to the United States, we buy you an investment property. It's a fairly straightforward process. We can get you a US mortgage. And once you bought the property, I then put a tenant in the property. I manage it for you so that your mortgage costs are covered by the tenant. You have an escalating asset in dollar terms. You've got an escalating asset. And that mortgage account is yours. It's building up a nice positive inflow and outflow of rentals and mortgage payments so that when you get here, you've got a solid foundation for a very good credit score. And I'll talk about credit score shortly. Credit score is the most critical part of your relocation. Quite frankly, I think it's almost as important as getting the visa. Is getting that credit score built as soon as you possible. Preparing you for a big move to a country and getting you settled into your new country. It's strange. You will go through good times, you go through bad times, and our job is to be here. That if you wake up at night and you're suddenly panicking about what you're doing, well, we're here. It's a phone call and we'll talk you through the bad times. Now, all over the world, people keep on telling me that cash is king. No, it's not in the United States. Credit score is king. Your credit score is a measure of your character, your honesty, your reliability, and your trustworthiness. It's the best character reference that you can possibly find. Without a good credit score, you're just a tourist. You're passing through, you're paying cash for everything. Not a good idea. Don't pay cash for anything if you can possibly avoid it. You want to have credit. Now, without a credit score, your life is impacted greatly during your first few years in the United States. When you get here, you will not get a credit card. And if you happen to have a credit card overseas, something like American Express, don't think that you can transfer it to the United States. It doesn't work. Credit cards in the United States are issued by credit card companies in the United States based upon your credit score. We had a great credit score in our home country. We had very nice American Express credit cards. We found that it didn't count for squat. The moment the credit card company found out that we were in the US, they closed down our South African cards and wouldn't transfer our accounts to the US at all. So you will not have a credit card when you get here. You will not get a mortgage to buy a home when you get here. You might get some car finance, but it is going to be expensive, and you are going to put down a massive deposit. We had to put down, I think it was something like 45 or 50% deposit, and then pay a huge interest rate to buy our first car. Our car insurance was brutal. It works out at roughly 30% of the value of the car is what you will pay in insurance premiums in the first year. That's how expensive it is. So we guide you. And those insurance premiums, they change all the time. You buy a red car, higher insurance. Certain models have high insurance. Two-door vehicles have a higher insurance than four-door vehicles. Those vehicles that get stolen regularly, they have a much higher insurance. So all of that impacts everybody in the United States. But the fact that you come here, regardless of your age, you're classified as a new driver, you will get penalized with a high premium exactly the same way that a 16-year-old will be penalized driving for the very first time. So we'll guide you through how to save as much money on the car insurance, but accept the fact that you're going to be paying high rates. Cell phone contracts are based upon your credit score. If you've got a good credit score, cell phone contract is pretty easy. When I came here, I was trying to get a cell phone, and they pulled my credit score, and they wanted 2 years of the cell phone contract as a deposit. 2 years as a deposit. Apartment and home rentals are also quite scary when you first get here if you don't do something about your credit score. Rental deposits. I look after a number of properties for South African clients that I purchase for them here in this country. If a tenant comes to me and he's got a great credit score, fine, 1 month deposit. That's all I'm looking for. If he's got a lousy credit score, sometimes I want 4 months, 5 months, even 6 months of rental as a deposit. He's got a low credit score, which means the guy's character is questionable. Therefore, I must accept the fact that maybe he's not going to pay his rental. That's why I want a good buffer of about 6 months of rental. Your insurance is also going to impact you. Very often, when you go and get medical treatments, they will pull your credit score because they want to know, do we take a big down payment if you're going in for some sort of surgery? Do we get a big deposit up front? Which they will do if you've got a bad credit score, because they need to make certain that they're in fact going to get paid. So credit score is critical. But here's the paradox. You cannot get a US credit, we cannot get US credit unless you have a credit score. But you can't get a credit score unless you've got credit. So you end up chasing your tail. I can't show that I have a credit score because nobody will give me any credit to build a credit score. But the exception is if you currently live overseas, then that paradox doesn't apply because we found a loophole in it and we found a way of bypassing that. So here's your game plan, step number 5. If you've got any questions about US immigration before, during, or after your move, there are 4 sources of information. And I'm giving this to you with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. There is a thumb suck. You go suck some information out of your thumb. It's your thumb, so it's got to be pretty good, I'm assuming. You can rely on a swag. That's a scientific wild-ass guess. Or you can go to the internet. Anybody can post internet, so there are lots of swags on the internet. Or you can come to us. We are the relocation specialists. Nobody else does what we're doing. We've been doing this for more than 18 years, and nothing beats personal experience. There are lots of relocation companies. They will put you into an apartment. They will guide you through some of the aspects. Nobody that we've come across goes into the detail of relocation to the same extent that we do. Remember, we're not Yes, we are American citizens, but we are immigrants ourselves. So we've been down this road. We have an intimate knowledge and experience of everywhere that we went wrong. We have an intimate experience of every frustration that we had during the period. And what we've done with our relationship with Pathway USA, with our clients, is to take out as much of that aggravation as we possibly can when it comes to your move. Now, when do you start? Well, the sooner the better. Remember, visas take time. Some visas you can get fairly quickly, but green cards can take 2-3 years. Some of those EB-5s that were filed back in 2019, they're still in process. So visas do take time. Kids are getting older all the time. Remember, your children only have derivative status until the age of 21. Now, you might think that you've got 10-year-old kids, that you've got plenty of time. When we moved to the United States in 2001, my eldest child was 10. 11 years later, when she turned 21, we still did not have our permanent residence. So my daughter lost her derivative status. And immediately they take away driver's licenses. They kicked her out of, they tried to kick her out of university. They took away her scholarships because now she was no longer in legal status. So the first thing we had to do is we had to convert her to an international student, which has huge impacts in terms of university fees. And we kept her at university until she finished her degree. End of degree, they said, all right, now you got to leave, because your status has expired. So she went to go and do a 3-year master's degree, and that bought her a little bit of time. But ultimately, she ran out of status at the age of 21, and it was extremely difficult. And 3 or 4 years later, we had no choice. Took her down to the airport, bought her a one-way ticket to London, and we kicked our daughter out of the family and out of the country, and we sent her off to go and make her life in the UK. It was probably one of the most difficult things that Diane and I have ever had to do. Totally destroyed us, totally destroyed her brother. And of course, she didn't have any family, didn't have any friends in England, had to go and start all over again. It was a long, long battle to eventually get her back into the United States. So in terms of this derivative status, the clock ticks from the moment you decide you're going to move to the US. If you have children that are under the age of 21, that's determining your timeline, because your family breakup starts when your eldest child turns 21. So remember, the clock ticks on that eldest child. You are getting older. A lot of people only think about moving to the United States, when they get into their senior years. I was 50 when I moved to the United States. It's not as easy starting a business from scratch at the age of 50 as it was when we were all nice and young and full of energy. So you don't want to leave it too late. Yes, I've had people move at my age. I've had others move at older ages than me. The longer you leave it, the more difficult it is going to become. The only advantage of, or the biggest advantage of starting sooner, is that your credit score is going to get older. And credit scores are like cheese and a red wine. They improve with age. So the sooner you start building the foundation of your credit score, the better your credit score is going to be. 15% of your credit score is determined by the length of your credit. So all things being equal, an American starts building his credit score at the age of 16. I started building my credit score at the age of 50. All things being equal, I can never have a credit score as high as an American who started so many years before me. So the sooner you do it, the better it is, because the longer your credit score, the longer your credit history, the better that score is going to be. So don't delay. If you're thinking of doing it, start doing something about it. Now, there's some questions that you must be asking. What state is correct for you in the US? There are 50 different countries here. They speak different languages. They have different legal systems. They have different ethics. They have different diets. They have different weather. What US state is right for you? You need to know about these things. Are you going to buy or rent a home? There are pros and cons on each of those. What are you going to do about schooling for your children? Are you going to go private schooling? Are you going to go public schooling? What are the advantages and disadvantages, and what are the limitations? What are you going to do about earning an income? Are you going to look for a job, or are you going to start your own business? Looking for a job, how do you go about doing it? What is an American resume? And if you're starting a business, how do you go about setting up a business? Do you know the rules of the American game? What are you going to do about home, car, and health insurance? You need to start asking these questions and educating yourself about these as soon as possible. Accept that you don't know it all. Remember, you don't know what you don't know. You're ignorant about your ignorance. You might think we spent months and months and months researching everything that we thought we needed to research. The things that we didn't research are the things we didn't even think about. So remember, you don't know what you don't know. Let us educate you about that. And if you have not spent a lot of time in the US, if you're not familiar with it, a good LSD, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, next holiday you do, blend in an LSD, which is the learning experience of living in the United States. Now, how do we charge? The very first thing that we do is you can do a 1-hour Zoom consult with me to discuss your visa options. Or if you already know your visa options and you've already done some research on this and you're quite comfortable that you've selected the correct visa, you can do a 1-hour Zoom consult to discuss the relocation logistics. That's about getting bank accounts, buying properties, how the health system works, how the educational system works, shipping of pets. All of the relocation logistics I can cover in an hour as well. And for that 1 hour, I charge $225. If you want to, and a lot of people will do this, you can blend the two into a 2-hour consult, and then we'll do both the visa options and your relocation logistics. And there my fee is $325 an hour. As I say, most of my clients will do the 2-hour one. They want to get the whole plan, not just the visa, but they also want to get the logistics of where they're going to live, what are they going to do, are they going to buy a house now, are they going to rent, looking at schools, how do you rate schools for good ones, bad ones, get a total education, an immersive education, so that they can make the decision. Is the US something that we want to do, or is it not? You can contact us via email. We can give you a full schedule of the services that we offer that cover all of the things that you're going to have to do to prepare for the big move. Now, your next step. If you're with me on this webinar so far, book an hour or a 2-hour Zoom consult workshop with us to find out what your pathway is going to be. Let us lead you into the correct direction to avoid making the fatal mistakes that we made. Guys, here's some tips. Start collecting all of your personal documentation that you're going to need to apply for a visa. One of the most important ones is going to be an unabridged birth certificate. They previously called that the vault copy. When you get onto this immigration roller coaster and you start working with an attorney, they file paperwork and they will periodically ask you for certain documentation. One of the documents they will ask you for is going to be your unabridged birth certificate. Now, if you've got small kids, you probably have their unabridged birth certificates. But if you're an old guy like me, can't even remember what happened with that. So you're going to have to go to your local Home Affairs department and wait however long it takes before they give that to you. And this is once again where the clock starts ticking. If the attorney asks for an unabridged birth certificate, or the US government asks for that unabridged birth certificate, they'll give you something like 30 days to provide that document. If they don't get the document within 30 days, they close the file and they say case abandoned. Everything that you've done up until there is totally wasted. You can't go to them and say, well, I'm terribly sorry that I couldn't make the 30 days because Home Affairs is having a shutdown or a strike or load shedding or whatever. The US government is not interested in what those delays are going to be. You lose your case because of an omission on your side. So you want to start collecting these documents, and we can guide our clients through the sort of documents that you need. For example, if you've been married, we want marriage certificates. If you've been divorced, we need those divorce decrees. All of this information, vaccination certificates, we're going to need for you and your children. Once again, you probably have those vaccination certificates for your kids, but do you have all of your vaccination certificates? Back to those days when we only had half a dozen of those. Either you get those certificates or you're going to have all of those vaccinations done all over again. Remember, everything is going to be done differently in the United States, and you can say, well, this is ridiculous and it's stupid and it's a waste of time. Unfortunately, that doesn't count for diddly squat. If the US government wants it, well, they want it and you have a choice. Give it or go away. So it's a non-negotiable. Right. There must be questions that a lot of you have got. The easiest way is, if it's a short question about how we work, you can contact us at one of those WhatsApp telephone numbers. Diane's number is the first one, the 704-777 number. Mine is the second one, the 704-451. This is not to evaluate your case. We do not do this over telephone calls. We do not do this in a WhatsApp call. But if you've got a question specifically about the business that we do, about the company that we do, and you want something clarified, yes, a WhatsApp call is fine. Or you can email us at any of those websites. We've got websites in the UK and South Africa and, of course, Turkey. And the email address for each of those is just info at that website, info@pathwayusa.coza, etc. If you want to move ahead with this, drop me an email and say I'm interested in looking at a Zoom call. I will send you a link to the questionnaire, and I will get that done first and foremost, and I'll send you a link to the various payment options, which you can do by EFT in some countries, or you can do it via credit card. But as I say, we don't get into the weeds of evaluating cases over the phone. I need that questionnaire first. And I like to do this in a Zoom call so that I can talk to you and we can discuss it and you can ask questions, and we can avoid misunderstandings because it is complicated. And when I'm talking to somebody on the other end of a phone, it's a little bit more difficult to make certain that there are no misunderstandings. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this of value. As I say, if you've got any questions, give me a shout. Thank you very much. This is Bruce Stewart at Pathway USA, signing out. Thank you.